The night was heavy with smoke and silence. The battlefield stretched far and wide. Broken ships and burning machines lay across the ground. The stars above were covered with clouds of war. Daniel, a young human soldier, walked slowly through the ruins. His uniform torn, his face tired, and his heart filled with both fear and anger. He had lost his unit hours ago. He was alone now. The war between humans and aliens had turned every corner of this planet into a graveyard. He heard the crack of metal under his boots. He stopped, listening carefully. The air was still, yet something moved in the shadows. He lifted his weapon, ready to fire, his hands shaking not from weakness but from exhaustion. Then he heard a voice, soft, broken, yet sharp with warning. "Don't come closer, human." The voice echoed through the ruins. It was not a human voice. It was strange, melodic, carrying a tone both dangerous and desperate. Daniel froze. His eyes scanned the darkness. Behind a broken wall he saw her, an alien figure lying on the ground, her body slim but strong, her skin faintly glowing in the night, her eyes burning with fear and pride. She held a weapon in one hand, but the weapon shook, just like his hands did. She repeated, weaker this time, "Don't come closer, human." Her voice was trembling now, as if she was fighting her own words. Daniel lowered his weapon slightly, not fully, but enough to show he was not rushing to kill her. His soldier training screamed inside his mind. She is the enemy. She is the reason your friends are dead. She is the danger you were warned about. Yet his eyes saw something else. He saw blood on her side. Dark and wet, she was wounded. The alien tried to push herself up, but her body failed. She fell back with a soft cry. Daniel could have walked away. He could have left her to die alone. It would have been easy. No one would know. No one would blame him, but his feet did not move. Something inside him whispered louder than his training. "Do not leave her here." He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the broken stones. Her eyes widened. She pointed the weapon at him, her hands weak but her will still strong. "I said don't come closer," she warned. Yet her hand trembled so much that the weapon almost slipped from her grip. Daniel stopped again, raising his empty hand, showing he was not aiming at her. "You are hurt," he said, his voice calm, slow, like talking to a frightened child or a wild animal. "If you stay here, you will die." She shook her head, her long hair falling over her glowing face. "Better die than trust a human," she whispered. Her words heavy with hate, but her eyes betrayed her. Deep inside them there was fear, there was pain, and maybe there was doubt. Daniel sighed. He lowered his weapon fully, placing it on the ground in front of him. A dangerous move, maybe a stupid move, but he wanted her to see he was not here to kill. He stepped closer again, slowly, carefully. Her hand shook. The weapon pointed at him, then down, then up again. She was fighting herself, her breath heavy, her body weak. When Daniel came near enough, she tried to push him back with her free hand, whispering once again, "Don't come closer." But her strength failed, and instead of pushing him away, her hand grabbed his arm, tightly, desperately. Daniel froze in shock. Her grip was strong even in her weakness. She held him as if letting go meant death. Her eyes met his, glowing with tears she did not want to show. "Don't leave me here," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. The soldier felt his chest tighten. This was not what he expected. This was not the enemy he was told to hate. This was not the monster from the stories. This was someone broken, afraid, fighting her own people's lies and her own body's pain. He lifted her carefully. Her weapon fell to the ground. She did not stop him. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breath uneven. She whispered again, almost too soft to hear, "Don't come closer, human. But don't leave me." The stars above remained hidden, the battlefield silent. Only the sound of his footsteps carrying both their lives forward. A soldier and an alien, enemies by war, yet bound in this strange encounter, and Daniel knew deep inside that nothing after this night would ever be the same. The night dragged on. The ruins were silent except for the distant hum of machines searching the battlefield. Daniel carried the alien woman in his arms, her weight light but her presence heavy. Every step he took felt dangerous. Every shadow seemed alive. Her name came softly, almost whispered as if she regretted speaking it. "Leora," she said, her voice weak but sharp. Daniel repeated it in his mind, Leora, a name that sounded both strange and beautiful. He found an old shelter, half-broken walls and a roof that barely stood, but it was enough to hide from the eyes of drones above. He placed her gently on the cold ground. She winced in pain, but did not let go of his arm until she was certain he was not leaving. "You should have left me," she whispered, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "My people will kill you if they find us, and your people will kill me." Her words were not a warning only. They were a truth, a heavy truth that hung between them. Daniel sat beside her, his weapon near but not in his hand. "Then we hide from both," he said. His voice low, his tone calm. "You need time to heal, and I cannot fight this war alone anymore." She studied him, her gaze sharp even in weakness. "Why help me?" she asked, suspicion filling her voice. "Your kind sees mine as monsters." Daniel looked at her wound, blood seeping through her strange armor. "Because leaving you here would make me one," he answered simply. She was silent, and in that silence something shifted. The hate she carried began to tremble like her hand had before. Not disappearing, but no longer solid, no longer unshakable. For hours they stayed hidden, listening to the machines above. Bright searchlights swept the ruins. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, shielding her as much as he could. Her hand clutched at his sleeve, her eyes closing each time the light passed too close. "You risk your life," she whispered, "if they find us." "You die first. Then they will have to find us," Daniel replied, steady, his voice carrying a strength even he did not know he still had. When the danger passed, Daniel cleaned her wound as best as he could, tearing cloth from his uniform. She hissed in pain, her teeth clenched, yet she did not push him away. Instead, she watched him with a strange expression, half anger, half confusion. "You care for an enemy," she muttered, almost accusing. "Do humans not fear betrayal?" Daniel tied the bandage tightly, his hands steady though his heart raced. "I fear many things," he said, "but I do not fear helping someone who needs help." Her eyes softened for a brief moment, only a brief one. Then she turned her face away. "You are a fool," she whispered, but her voice carried no hate this time, only something he could not name. The night grew colder. Daniel gave her his jacket. She tried to refuse, saying, "I don't need your pity," but she kept it close anyway, her hands trembling less now, her breathing softer. When he leaned back against the broken wall, exhaustion pulling at his body, she moved slightly, enough to whisper again, "Do not think this makes us friends." Her words strong, but her grip on his sleeve still there. Refusing to let go, Daniel closed his eyes, answering with a faint smile. "Then let us be enemies who keep each other alive." Her silence this time felt heavier than any words. As dawn approached, the sounds of alien patrols echoed in the distance. Their language sharp and cruel. Daniel tensed, ready to fight. But Leora shook her head, warning him, "No. You cannot fight them all. If they find us, run." Daniel looked at her pale face and glowing eyes, and said firmly, "I will not leave you." She stared at him, her lips parting as if to argue, but no words came, only the faintest whisper of breath, as though part of her wanted to believe him. The patrol passed, leaving silence once again. Daniel finally allowed himself to breathe. Leora leaned back, closing her eyes, her hand still gripping his arm even in her sleep. For the first time since the war began, Daniel felt something strange, something almost forbidden on a battlefield. He felt hope. Yet deep inside, he knew this fragile alliance was more than dangerous. It was a choice that could doom them both, and still he did not regret it. Not even for a moment. The war outside raged on. But in the ruins under the broken sky, a human and an alien had formed something the war had tried to kill. Something the war feared most. A bond. The morning sun broke through the heavy clouds. Its light fell weakly across the ruins. Daniel woke first, his body stiff, his mind still alert. Every small sound made his hand move to his weapon. He had survived another night. But danger was never far. Beside him, Leora stirred. Her breathing shallow, her eyes half open. She was still weak, but alive. Her wound looked better with the bandage. Though Daniel knew it was not enough, without real treatment she could still die. Yet she tried to sit up, refusing to look fragile. "You should have left before dawn," she whispered, her voice carrying the same mix of warning and pride. "Your soldiers patrol this sector at sunrise if they see us together. They will shoot first and ask later." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I'm not leaving you," he said firmly, his eyes on hers, his words simple but heavy. For a moment she looked at him as if he was a puzzle she could not solve. Then her gaze shifted, turning cold. "You don't understand, human. This war is not what you think it is." Her words caught his attention. He leaned forward slightly. "Then tell me," he said. "Tell me what I don't understand." Leora closed her eyes, as if deciding whether to speak was worse than staying silent. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her wound. Finally she whispered, "My people did not start this war because of greed or conquest. We started it because we were afraid." Daniel frowned. Afraid of what? Afraid of us? Her eyes opened, glowing faintly in the shadows. Yes, she said simply. Afraid of humanity. Her words cut through him like a blade. He had been told the aliens wanted to enslave humans, to destroy Earth, to take resources, but never that they were afraid. We watched you from afar, Leora continued, her voice bitter yet sorrowful. We saw how fast you grew, how you spread from your small blue planet into the stars, how you built weapons faster than you built homes. We feared what you would become. Daniel clenched his fists, anger rising. So you struck first? You killed millions because you feared what might happen? She lowered her head, her voice breaking. Yes, because we thought it was the only way. My leaders believed if we crushed you early, the stars would be safe. Silence filled the broken shelter. Daniel's chest rose and fell sharply, his thoughts racing. Everything he had believed, every story told by his commanders now twisted into something else. He wanted to hate her more for telling him this, but when he looked at her pale face, trembling hands and the pain in her eyes, he saw not a monster, but someone caught in a storm she did not control. You said your leaders, Daniel muttered. What about you? Do you believe it too? Her eyes locked with his, firm, steady despite her weakness. No, she whispered. Not anymore. Her voice shook, but her words did not. She went on. There is something worse, something I must tell you. If you return to your people, if you care for them, you must know. She leaned closer, her breath unsteady. My kind has built a weapon, one that will end this war in a single strike. It will not just kill soldiers. It will erase cities, whole worlds. Daniel's heart pounded. He grabbed her arm. What weapon? He demanded, his voice low but fierce. Her face turned pale, her lips trembling. A storm of fire, energy that burns the very air. It will fall from the sky, and when it does, nothing human will remain. Daniel felt cold spread through his body, his mind imagining Earth burning, families erased, everything gone in moments. Why are you telling me this? He asked, suspicion and hope colliding inside him. Why betray your people? Leora's hand reached for his sleeve again, her grip weak but desperate. Because if they find out I told you, they will kill us both, she whispered, her eyes filling with tears she tried to hide. But I cannot let my people become monsters. Not like this. Daniel looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time he saw her not as alien, not as enemy, but as someone who carried the same weight he did, the weight of war, the burden of choices. The ruins around them seemed to grow colder, the silence heavier. Daniel knew the truth now, and truths were heavier than lies, heavier than war itself. Above them, the sound of patrols grew louder again, machines scanning the ruins, both human and alien forces closing in. The fragile safety they had found was breaking. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon, his other hand still on her arm. Then we survive, he said firmly. We survive. And we stop that weapon. Leora's eyes widened, her lips parting. She looked at him as if his words carried a strength she had forgotten existed. Her voice broke into a whisper. If you stand with me, you will be hunted by both sides. Daniel gave a faint smile, though his eyes were hard, his heart unshaken. Then let them hunt, he said, as long as we stand together. Her hand tightened on his arm again, just like that first night, and though her lips trembled, her words were clear. Don't come closer. Human, she whispered. Yet don't let me go. And for the first time, Daniel knew he wouldn't, not ever. The ruins were no longer quiet. The sound of footsteps and mechanical drones filled the air. The enemy was close, too close. Daniel pressed himself against the broken wall, his heart pounding, his weapon ready. Leora leaned beside him, her breathing weak but her eyes sharp. They are hunting me, she whispered, her voice tense. They know I live, and they will not stop until I am dead. Daniel glanced at her, the glow of her skin faint in the dark corner. Then they will have to kill me first, he said firmly. Her eyes widened, surprise flashing across her face. But before she could answer, the sound of metal scraping stone came from the other side of the wall, alien soldiers speaking in their sharp language, their footsteps heavy, weapons humming with power. Daniel signaled for silence. Leora nodded weakly, her hand gripping her weapon though she could barely lift it. The patrol stopped just a few meters away, their voices low, searching, scanning. The air grew thick with tension. Daniel held his breath, his finger on the trigger. He knew if they were found, there would be no time for thinking, only fighting. Then the light of a scanner swept across the ruins. The beam passed over their hiding place. Daniel pulled Leora close, covering her body with his own. The light hovered, paused, then moved away. The soldiers muttered something and began to move. Daniel exhaled slowly, relief short-lived, because the next sound was worse. A mechanical drone lowering from above, its red eye glowing, its sensors locking onto heat. Leora's voice broke the silence, soft and urgent. "Run, Daniel. Leave me." Daniel shook his head violently. "Not a chance," he whispered back. The drone's eye turned. Its sensor beam sweeping, Daniel fired. A single shot tearing through the machine, it exploded in sparks. But the blast gave them away, shouts erupted. Heavy boots rushing. "Move!" Daniel shouted, grabbing Leora's arm, pulling her to her feet. She stumbled but forced herself forward. They ran through the ruins, gunfire flashing behind them. Stones breaking apart. Leora fired back weakly, her shots missing but slowing the enemy's advance. Daniel turned, firing quick bursts, dropping 2 soldiers before dragging her onward. Their breaths harsh, the night alive with chaos. They reached a broken tunnel. The ground unstable, Daniel pushed her inside, crawling after her as bullets struck the wall above. The tunnel was dark, filled with dust. Their footsteps echoed as they crawled deeper. Behind them, voices shouted, the sound of pursuit never fading. Daniel's mind raced. They couldn't keep running forever, they needed an escape, but where? Where could they go when both armies wanted them dead? Leora stumbled, her wound bleeding again. Daniel caught her before she fell, pressing her against the tunnel wall, her body trembling. "Leave me," she whispered again. Tears in her glowing eyes. "You cannot carry me forever. You will die for nothing." Daniel grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him, his voice fierce. "You are not nothing. Leora, you are not my enemy. And I will not leave you." Her lips parted, her breath shaky. She stared at him as though no one had ever spoken such words to her. The tunnel shook, rocks falling as explosions thundered above. Daniel pulled her forward, coughing through dust. Finally, they reached an opening that led to the surface, but the sight waiting for them froze his heart. Dozens of alien soldiers stood in the open space, weapons glowing, their leader at the front, his armor shining with authority, his voice booming. "Leora, traitor of our kind. Surrender now." Daniel aimed his rifle, standing in front of her, his body a shield. "If you want her." "You go through me," he shouted back. The soldiers laughed, their leader smirked. "Then you will die first, human." But before they could fire, Leora stepped forward, leaning on Daniel for support, her voice strong despite her pain. "I am no traitor. I am saving you from your own lies," she shouted. "You fear humans, but you do not see the truth. Our leaders will turn us into monsters, killers of worlds." Her people hesitated, confusion flashing in their glowing eyes, but the leader roared, "Silence her!" Gunfire erupted. Daniel pulled her down. Returning fire with fury, the battlefield exploded with chaos. Explosions shaking the ground. Leora clung to him, firing her weapon weakly but with determination. They fought side by side, enemies by war, allies by survival. Daniel felt her shoulder press against his, her trust silent but powerful. Together they carved a path through the chaos. At last, a blast from Daniel's rifle brought down part of the wall, blocking the soldiers from following, smoke and dust filling the air. They stumbled into another tunnel, breathing hard, blood and sweat covering them. Daniel pulled her close, her body trembling. "Don't come closer, human," she whispered again, her voice breaking. "Yet don't let me go." Daniel tightened his grip on her arm, his eyes hard but his heart soft. "I won't," he said, his voice steady. "Not now. Not ever." The ruins around them burned. Their enemies still hunting, but together they escaped. Together, they survived, and in that moment a bond stronger than fear and deeper than war was born. The tunnels were damp and cold, the air heavy with dust. Every sound echoed like a warning. Daniel and Leora moved slowly, their bodies weak, their breath short. They had escaped the soldiers, but not the danger. Danger still followed them in the dark. Daniel carried a small lamp he had found among the ruins. Its weak light pushed back only a little of the endless shadows. Beside him, Leora walked with difficulty, leaning against the wall when her legs failed. Her wound reopened during the fight, but she refused to stop. "You need rest," Daniel said firmly, his hand steady on her arm. "If we keep moving like this, you will collapse." Leora's glowing eyes turned to him, sharp but tired. "And if we stop, they will catch us," she whispered. "Your people, my people. Neither will forgive us," Daniel sighed, his chest heavy. He knew she was right, yet he could not watch her fall. Finally, he guided her into a small side chamber hidden from the main path. Broken stone and collapsed beams made it feel safe enough. At least for a while, he sat her down gently, tearing another strip from his uniform to strengthen the bandage on her side. She hissed in pain, gripping his wrist tightly, but she did not push him away. "You are stubborn," she whispered, her voice trembling but calm. "Humans fight wars, yet you spend your strength on saving me." Daniel met her gaze, his eyes steady. "Maybe because saving you is the only thing that feels right." Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Instead, she looked down, her hand still on his wrist, not letting go. Hours passed in silence, the sound of dripping water the only voice in the chamber. Leora leaned back against the wall, her head resting weakly. Daniel sat near her, his rifle across his knees, always ready, but his eyes often returned to her, studying the lines of her face, the faint glow of her skin, the quiet strength hidden in her weakness. At last, her voice broke the silence, soft, almost hesitant. "When I was young, they told us humans were beasts, that you destroy everything you touch, that mercy does not live in your kind." She paused, her glowing eyes lifting to his. "But I see now they feared you, not because you are beasts, but because you are different." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her about the stories he had been told too, about aliens as monsters with no heart, but instead he said, "Maybe both our people were wrong." She gave a faint smile. "Weak but real. Maybe," she whispered. The chamber grew colder as night fell again above. Daniel noticed her shiver. Without hesitation, he removed his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. She tried to refuse, shaking her head. "I do not need your pity." But her trembling hands pulled it close anyway. In the dark, their breaths made small clouds. Daniel leaned back against the wall beside her. The silence now felt less heavy, almost peaceful. Then the ground trembled. Dust falling from above, an explosion shook the tunnels. Daniel tensed, gripping his rifle. Leora's eyes widened. "The tunnels are unstable," she whispered, fear cutting her voice before they could move. Part of the ceiling collapsed behind them, blocking the way they had entered. Daniel coughed through the dust, pulling Leora close to shield her. When the air cleared, they realized they were trapped. Only one narrow passage ahead, leading deeper underground. Leora's face grew pale, her breathing sharp. "If the air does not kill us, the darkness will," she whispered, her voice shaking. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. "We will get out," he said. Together, she looked at him, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. For a long moment, she did not speak. Then she leaned closer, her head resting against his shoulder, her voice soft as a sigh. "I don't want to die with fear in my heart." Daniel froze, his chest tightening. He wanted to speak, to promise, but no words came, so he let his silence be the answer. His hand resting gently on hers, they sat together in the cold dark, two enemies bound by survival, two strangers bound by something deeper. Hours later, Daniel drifted toward sleep, but before his eyes closed, he felt her hand tighten around his, holding him with surprising strength, as if afraid he would vanish if she let go. In that moment, Daniel understood the truth. This was no longer survival only, no longer a fragile alliance forced by war. Something stronger had begun, something neither of them could deny. Above them, the war raged, armies fought, worlds burned. But here in the silence of the tunnels, a bond was growing, fragile yet powerful, a bond that could change everything. The tunnels grew narrower as Daniel and Leora moved deeper. Their footsteps echoed softly. The air was thick and hard to breathe, yet they pressed on because behind them was death. And ahead, maybe a chance. Daniel kept his rifle ready, his body tense, his mind alert. Leora leaned against him when her strength faltered, but her eyes remained sharp, always searching the shadows. At last they reached an opening. Broken metal doors led into a vast chamber. Old machinery hummed faintly, abandoned long ago. But the chamber was not empty. Figures stepped out from the shadows, armored soldiers, weapons glowing, their alien eyes fixed on the two fugitives. Daniel raised his rifle instantly, pulling Leora behind him, but then he froze. Because these soldiers were not human, they were her people. The leader stepped forward, tall, his armor polished with authority, his voice sharp as a blade. "Leora," he said, his tone filled with both anger and disbelief. "You walk with a human, you fight beside him. You shame your kind." Leora stiffened, her grip on Daniel's arm tightening. She tried to stand tall despite her weakness. "I fight for truth," she said firmly. "Not for lies, not for fear," the soldiers growled. Their weapons rising, the leader sneered. "You have betrayed us for that? Death is the only sentence." His eyes shifted to Daniel, filled with contempt. And the human dies first. Daniel aimed his rifle. His heart pounding, but he knew he was outnumbered. He could not fight them all. Yet he would not lower his weapon. Not while Leora stood behind him. Leora stepped forward. Her body trembling, but her voice strong. "No," she said. "If you want to kill him, you kill me first." The soldiers hesitated, shock flashing in their glowing eyes. Betrayal to them was worse than death, and here was one of their own, standing between them and a human. The leader snarled, his voice loud, echoing in the chamber. "You would die for him? For a creature who will bring ruin to the stars?" Leora's gaze did not waver. "No," she whispered, "I would die with him. Because he showed me something you never did. He showed me mercy." Her words struck like lightning. Silence fell heavy. Even the soldiers shifted uneasily. Daniel's heart ached at her words. He wanted to tell her she would not die. Not while he still breathed. But before he could speak, the leader raised his hand, signaling the attack. The soldiers moved, weapons charging. Daniel pulled Leora close, his finger on the trigger. He fired. Taking down the first soldier, the chamber exploded with chaos. Gunfire and energy blasts filled the air. Daniel fought fiercely, his body moving with desperate strength. But there were too many. Blasts struck near him, the shock waves knocking him down. His rifle clattered across the floor. Rough hands grabbed him, dragging him to his knees. Leora screamed, struggling against the soldiers who held her, her voice breaking. "Stop! Don't hurt him!" The leader stepped forward, his blade raised high, glowing with deadly light. "This is the end of your human," he declared. Daniel looked up, his chest heaving, his body weak, but his eyes unbroken. He was ready to face death, if it meant she would live. But before the blade fell, Leora broke free. She moved faster than anyone expected. Her weapon in her hand, she aimed not at Daniel, not at the humans she had been taught to hate, but at her own commander. "Enough," she shouted, her voice shaking the chamber. "I will not let you destroy him. I will not let you destroy what is left of us." The soldiers froze, shock and confusion stopping their hands. The leader glared at her, fury burning in his eyes. "You would raise your weapon against your own?" Her hands trembled, her wound bled, yet her voice was steady. "Yes," she whispered, "because my people are lost, and maybe, just maybe, a human can remind us what it means to live." The chamber filled with silence again. Daniel stared at her, his heart pounding, her words cutting deeper than any blade. The leader snarled, raising his weapon again. But the hesitation of the soldiers gave Daniel his chance. He grabbed his fallen rifle, firing with precision. Chaos erupted once more. Smoke filled the chamber, confusion spreading among the ranks. Leora rushed to Daniel's side, pulling him up even as her body shook. Their eyes met in the storm of fire and fear. "Don't come closer, human," she whispered, her hand gripping his tightly. "Yet don't let me go." And Daniel knew then, in the heart of battle, that her choice had been made. She had chosen him, even if it meant betraying everything she once believed. Together they fought through the storm. Together they fled once more into the dark, hunted now not by one army, but by two, enemies to the stars, yet bound to each other. The night sky above was burning. Ships clashed in the heavens. Fire rained across the broken land. Daniel and Leora stumbled out of the tunnels, their bodies weak, their clothes torn, yet their eyes still alive with fire. They had escaped once more, but the war had not escaped them. The battlefield stretched wide. Human soldiers on one side, alien warriors on the other. Death hung heavy in the air. Daniel gripped his rifle, his arm steady though his strength was fading. Beside him, Leora leaned on him for support, her wound bleeding again, yet her gaze sharp, her voice low. "If they see us together, they will kill us both." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then they will see the truth first," he said. The ground shook. Human soldiers advanced through the ruins, their weapons ready, their eyes cold with suspicion. At the same time, alien patrols appeared on the ridge, their weapons glowing, the two armies clashing once more. But their focus turned when they saw the impossible sight before them. A human soldier and an alien standing side by side. Shouts filled the air, weapons rose, orders barked. "Kill the traitor," one alien commander roared. "Shoot the alien," a human officer shouted. Daniel stepped forward, pulling Leora with him, his voice loud. Breaking through the noise, "Stop," he shouted. "This war does not need more death." The soldiers froze only for a moment, confusion in their eyes, but their fingers still hovered on their triggers. Daniel raised his hands, his rifle hanging at his side. "She is not the enemy," he said, His voice steady though his heart pounded. She saved me, she chose mercy, and now I choose the same. The alien soldiers hissed, their commander snarled, lies. Humans know nothing of mercy, but Leora stepped forward, leaning on Daniel, her voice clear despite her weakness. Then why am I still alive? She demanded. Why has this human carried me, protected me, fought for me? Her glowing eyes swept across both armies. You fear them, you call them beasts. But beasts do not show mercy. Beasts do not bleed for strangers. Beasts do not hold on when all the stars tell them to let go. Silence spread like fire through the battlefield. Soldiers shifted uneasily. Their orders heavy, but their hearts shaken. The human officer shouted again, Enough! Kill her now. But Daniel moved, placing himself in front of Leora, his body a shield, his voice fierce. No, he shouted, if you want her dead, then you kill me first. Gasps echoed from both sides. The madness of his words struck them like thunder. A human soldier protecting an alien clinging to a human, it was unthinkable. The alien commander raised his weapon, fury burning in his eyes, but his soldiers hesitated, doubt breaking their obedience. Daniel's soldiers too faltered, their rifles lowering, confusion cutting deeper than their hatred. Leora's hand tightened on Daniel's arm, her voice breaking into a whisper. Don't come closer, human, she said softly. Yet don't let me go. Daniel's chest tightened, his heart beating like drums of war, but his voice carried stronger than any general's. This is the truth, he shouted. This is what your leaders fear. Not our weapons, not our numbers, but this, that we can choose mercy, that we can choose each other. The battlefield held still. No gunfire, no advance, only the sound of the burning sky above. Then slowly one human soldier lowered his weapon. Another followed. Then an alien warrior did the same. The chain spread like a spark-catching flame, weapons lowering one by one, hearts trembling with something they had forgotten. The commanders shouted, cursed, demanded obedience, but their voices no longer held power. The soldiers saw the truth with their own eyes. Daniel stood tall, Leora by his side, enemies by blood, allies by choice. In that moment they were more powerful than any army. The war did not end in an instant. The sky still burned, the leaders still plotted. But on that battlefield, before human eyes and alien eyes alike, something stronger than war was born. Daniel looked at Leora, her glowing eyes meeting his. Filled with pain but also with hope, she whispered again, the words that had first divided them, now binding them forever. Don't come closer, human. But don't let me go, and he answered with his silence, his hand holding hers tighter, his body standing unbroken. For the first time since the stars turned red with war, mercy had been chosen not by governments, not by generals, but by a soldier and an alien who refused to let go. And sometimes mercy was enough to change the fate of worlds.